You are listening to Practical and Woo by Mindset and Manifest. My name is Eden, and I invite you to embark on a journey with me to explore the practical and spiritual edges of the unknown for the purpose of allowing you to embody and empower yourself uniquely as you are and to intentionally create and live a life of freedom and fulfillment. Each week, I am going to discuss topics such as energetics, reality creation, manifestation, astrology, tarot, and more to help empower you to live beyond perceived limitations and to practically design your life so it feels like absolute magic every step of the way. Let's dive in. Well, hello, brilliant soul. I loved last week's episode so much so that today I decided to offer you a descriptive story episode. One that I hope gives you a moment to step out of the noise of the world and into the timeless language of metaphor. Staying true to our theme, this is a story about what it means to be yourself. Not just to perform authenticity, but to actually embody it. Not just to say, this is who I am, but to feel it, live it, breathe it, and return to it again and again. So find a cozy spot if you're able, perhaps even just in the clarity of your own mind. Allow your shoulders to drop, and let me tell you a tale about the mirror tree. Long ago, there was a village called Hammer. It was a place of constant motion where everyone was always becoming something or another. Children were, from a young age, assigned a shape and instructed to become it. Some were circles, smooth, agreeable, easy to roll along, others squares, stable, practical, easy to stack. There were triangles who were sharp and ambitious, stars, glittery and admired, even spirals, mystical and misunderstood. No matter which shape you were given, the rules were simple. Stay in your shape, fit in, conform. And if you ever slipped out of form, there were reminders, quiet shamings, public corrections, raised brows, withdrawn invitations. In Hammer, the highest virtue was consistency, and so the people did their best to shrink and sculpt themselves to fit the shape assigned. Among these villagers was a young girl named Sora. Sora tried her best to fit her shape. She tried circles, they rolled her too fast. She tried squares, they felt too tight. She tried a star once, but the points made her feel like she was hurting others. Every time she tried to hold a shape assigned, something deep within her would twist. Her edges didn't want to stay still, they shifted with the seasons. Her laughter made her glow like a flame, and her tears softened her like clay. She wasn't only one thing, she was many. But in Hammer, being many shapes was dangerous. Her teachers told her she was confused. Her friends said she was being dramatic. Out of fear for her well-being, her parents begged her to do better so she wouldn't get cast away or hurt. So she did what many of us do. She learned to hide. She finally landed on a shape that looked acceptable. A tidy little hexagon. And she held it, hard, even when it hurt. One day Sora met a wise sage in the village square, a being unlike anyone she'd ever known. The sage wore a robe of many colors, and her eyes sparkled with the kind of mischief only earned by living a long, true life. The sage sat beside Sora, who was practicing how to hold her angles just right. And she said, "You know, the truest parts of you don't live in your edges. They live in your rhythm." Sora blinked. What rhythm? The sage pulled out a small folded map. On it, instead of roads and names, were symbols like moons, rivers, birds, and spirals. This map, the sage said, is not to take you somewhere new, but to help you remember where you began. The sage pointed to a particular spot, a tree etched in silver. This is the mirror tree. It shows you who you are beneath what you were taught. But be warned, many don't like what they see at first. It takes courage. And still, you seem ready. Sora swallowed, hard. 1,000 questions rose in her mind. Deeper still was something older. A tug, a twist. She hesitated at first, but then took the map as her own. Sora left the village the next morning. She followed the symbols and traveled by the will of her instinct. Along the way, she met others like her. A boy whose voice changed every time he spoke. A woman who wept when people sang. And a child who drew wings on everything they passed, even the littlest of rocks. These fellow friends were the unshaped, the ones who hadn't forgotten how to listen to their core. Together they walked, and with each step, Sora's hexagonic angles softened. Most of this didn't feel easy. There were many days she wanted to turn back, days she missed the approval and the certainty. But there were also days where she laughed so freely it startled the birds from their nests, and days where she cried and it felt holy to be in her sadness. Her walk became a ceremony of remembrance, and at last, on one fateful day, the unshaped finally reached the grove they were seeking. Before them, the mirror tree stood. It was unlike anything Sora had ever seen before. Its bark shimmered like glass, but it somehow still felt warm. Its branches twisted into fractals, and its leaf whispered her name in infinite tones. Each pilgrim stepped forward. They placed a hand to the trunk, and the tree reflected to them themselves, not as others saw them, not as they'd been told to be, but as they truly were. When it was Sora's turn, she trembled. She touched the bark of the tree, and it glowed with her truth. In the mirror, she saw a girl with a radiant center of light, surrounded by colors that changed with her feelings, a dance of possibility, a storm and a sunrise, a melody, not a mold. She fell to her knees, confronted with the images. She was reminded here and now that she was never meant to be a shape, but a song. Sora stayed for a while, long enough to learn herself, long enough to know herself. She learned of the light in the center of her core. And then she saw the way that this light wanted and wished to express itself authentically through her as a channel for it. She learned of what her life was meant to shine upon and how it desired to move. When Sora returned to Hammer, she was not the same. She broke out of conforming to one single way of seeing herself, and she glistened with the truth of who she actually is. Other villagers called her strange, while many thought her to be inspiring. But Sora no longer lived for their accolades. She lived in the expression and meaning of her authenticity. With this, something quite curious and rather extraordinary began to happen. As Sora walked through her village, shimmering with her own resonance, others began to soften around her. She noticed as a square once unfolded into a spiral, and a circle grew wings. The village began to sing in harmony with her, and they were all better for discovering who they were and who they were meant to be. To be yourself is to embrace your own mirror tree and to walk through the world as someone who's not afraid to shimmer. Because when you allow yourself to shine as you are, you don't just free yourself, you also give others permission to cast their glow as well. Until next time.